Hi everyone. I hope you can remember what happened in our Bible story last week. If you didn't get to listen to it, it'd be a good idea to do that now. Last week we learned that God hears and answers our prayers when we pray. Hannah was sad that she didn't have any children. She prayed and asked God for a baby. God answered her prayers and Samuel was born. Do you remember the promise that Hannah made with God? She promised to give Samuel back to Eli the priest so that he could work for God for the rest of his life. Hannah kept her promise. When Samuel was about 5 years old, Hannah took him back to Eli the priest so that he could learn to work for God. Now I thought today it would be really nice to do some acting out, so you can pretend to be Samuel today, but pause this video now and get yourself a cushion and a blanket because today's story starts at bedtime. So Samuel was busy helping Eli the priest every day. One night when all his jobs were done, Samuel went off to bed. So you pretend to be Samuel now and off to bed you go. Get your pillow and get your blanket and lie down and pretend you're going to go to sleep. Suddenly Samuel heard someone calling his name.
Samuel!
Sit up and put your hand to your ear like you're trying to listen and hear that voice. Samuel thought it must be Eli calling him, so he got out of bed and went over to Eli. Did you call me? Samuel asked. No, said Eli. Go back to sleep. So Samuel went back to bed. Right, tuck yourselves back in again. But it happened again. A voice called out,
Samuel!
So he got up and went to Eli again. You called me, Samuel said. No, said Eli, I did not call you. Go back to bed. Back to bed he went. But it happened again.
Samuel!
Do you think Samuel got out of his comfortable bed to go to Eli again? Well, yes, he did. So off he went to Eli again and he said, You called me. Now this time Eli knew that it was God that was calling Samuel. So he told Samuel, Go back to bed, and when you hear your name, say, Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Can you remember that? Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. So Samuel went back to bed again, and can you guess what happened? Yes, the voice came again.
Samuel!
What did Samuel need to say? Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. God spoke to Samuel even though he was very young. Now God told Samuel that Eli's sons had done some very bad things and that he was angry with them, and God said he would have to punish them. After God had spoken to Samuel, Samuel went to sleep. So you can pretend to go to sleep now. There we go. But soon it was morning. Oh, big stretch, big yawn. And Samuel got up to go and do his jobs for Eli. But just as he was about to start, Eli called for him. He asked him to tell him what God had said to him during the night. Now Samuel must have been quite scared because it wasn't going to be good news, was it, that he was going to tell him? He told Eli that God said he was angry with his sons for doing bad things and that they needed to be punished. Eli was sad, but he knew that God was right. After this time, God spoke to Samuel many times, and as Samuel grew older, he told the people what God wanted them to do. But do you know that God still speaks to us today? Not in the same way that he spoke to Samuel. No, he speaks to us through the Bible, so it's really important to listen carefully when you hear Bible stories at home or in church. So remember today that although we won't hear God's voice in the same way that Samuel did, God does still speak to us today through his words in the Bible. We all need to listen to what God says to us in the Bible and do what he says. Bye-bye, see you next week.